What is a quote? Is it merely a few words penned by another that serves to briefly inspire us as we go about our day-to-day lives? In some instances, these special words can be so much more, perhaps even a template for how to lead our lives. Our daughter Caroline has long been fond of quotes. For years, she recorded her favorites in her own personal quote book. Little did she know that one of her favorite quotes was to become the cornerstone for how she would adapt to the biggest challenge of her life. Life is not about staying out of the storm. It is about learning to dance in the rain. Caroline has always made her presence known, whether it be with a fight with her brothers or her sweetness, and also in her confidence. She developed wonderful self-confidence by being picked on, pushed around, and thrown in with everything, and she always worked very hard at it.
There were 5 years difference between us. She started college at the same time I started law school. Several years leading up to her accident, Caroline and I were talking, communicating every single day through the miracle of cell phone.
Before the accident, I got to know Caroline very well. I'm an only child, so I had never had a sister, and we really bonded very quickly. We were kind of kindred soulmates from the beginning.
Caroline was a swimmer, and in college she was on the crew team. So athletics have been a big part of her life.
Caroline and we had that in common. Caroline and I would go to swim practice together, but we had a great relationship.
I remember the night, it was November the 7th, 2006. Caroline was on her way back to Clemson after a long weekend at home.
Caroline was very good about calling. I know exactly how long it takes for her to get back to school. And I told David when he came home, there's something wrong.
And about 8 o'clock that night, we got a call from the emergency room at Greenville Memorial Hospital.
Single car accident. The horrible rain could have been just a slippage of the tires on the road. But she was on a mountain going down into Greenville, South Carolina. And just the wrong place at the wrong time. She was not on a telephone. Her airbags worked, her seatbelt was on. Everything was just the way it should be. And it was just one of those things that happened.
First thing Susan did says, "Let me speak to her." And the nurse said that she couldn't speak. And that was our first clue as to how serious the accident which she had been involved in was.
It was a hard phone call. It took me a few minutes to process what was going on and what it meant, and I really had very few details.
I actually believe my mom called, and it was maybe a 30-second conversation. She said, "Caroline's been in a horrible accident. She has some brain damage. Can you guys come here?" I called my brother right after that and packed a bag, went to his house, and we were on the road within an hour.
I just remember us all being kind of silent in the car and trying to understand what's going on.
When we went into the hospital, there was probably about 25 of Caroline's friends. We went upstairs to the neurointensive care unit where Caroline was and found out the extent of Caroline's injuries, which were obviously extremely severe. She stayed there in the neurointensive care unit really for the whole month that she was there at Greenville Memorial.
Eventually, everything falls into place. Until then, laugh at the confusion, live for the moment, and know everything happens for a reason. Well, the quote book that we found is wonderful. We've all loved it. When the kids left the hospital at Greenville and went to Clemson to clean out her apartment, they found it. We didn't know anything about it, and when we started reading it, we knew that this was a monumental find and something that would let all of us know more about Caroline than we already knew. And it's become one of our most precious possessions.
I love Caroline's quote book, and she has really inspirational quotes and also funny quotes, frustrating quotes. There are all kinds of days. Greatness lies not in being strong, but in the right use of strength.
After we came back to Knoxville, Caroline was in Specialty Select Hospital, which is a part of Fort Sanders Regional. Caroline didn't really meet the criteria to be admitted to Patricia Neal Rehabilitation Unit. One weekend, a couple of her friends from Clemson came to Knoxville to visit with her. Caroline was out in her wheelchair, which we called the pink Cadillac, and Caroline was really not able to communicate very much at that time. And unbeknownst to us, Dr. Mary Dillon was watching Caroline interact with her friends.
I came around the corner and there's a small alcove with a seating area. And I stepped back and looked. I was pretty sure that had to be Caroline Owen. And I watched. At that point, Caroline really had no purposeful movement and was not able to communicate either by gesture or by voice. But watching her with those girls, I knew she was following their conversation. Seeing her eyes, watching her track them, and the hints of emotion that were able to be shown on her face, I knew she was in there. And I knew then that we would do everything we could to get her to the rehab center to be able to achieve her full potential.
Her recovery began fairly quickly. It was amazing what even just the first few days of therapy was able to bring out of her.
When she first came to us, the very first things we had to work on were basic communication so that she could let us know what her needs and wants were. And then we progressed and worked on some of the mobility issues.
I was one of the first therapists for her start of intensive rehab. We usually introduce ourselves and say what we want to work on and kind of meet the patient for the first time and say, this is what we do. Depending on where you're at, this is kind of what we're going to go for. What are you expecting? And Susan's like, hard work. We're expecting hard work and we want our girl back.
And her mum is right there every session. She's listening. She's written notes at times. She's just got the family support that I wish all of our patients would have.
The thing about a coach is they make you do the things you don't want to do so you can achieve the things you want to achieve. And the Owen family has been that way with Caroline. They've all been her coach.
They're a pretty amazing group of people, and I think that that's one of the biggest blessings of being able to work with Caroline is seeing the positive impact of how a family, a dedicated family, can make a difference. That's the tipping point, I feel, so much in a person's recovery. Life is about not knowing, having to change, taking the moment and making the best of it.
They have really worked hard to maintain their family unit as a group that just has a lot of fun together. You know, when they were on the rehab unit, we'd hear the laughing coming out of their room on a daily basis. They're a family that has fun together and works together and enjoys each other.
I think humor and enjoying being with each other is the only way that a family or a group can get through hard times. If you only focus on the negative or just struggling through, you know, it's just hard to sort of get wrapped up in that and not being able to get out of it. So I think that's been a very important part of keeping everybody happy and everybody working and moving forward.
Aerodynamically, the bumblebee shouldn't be able to fly, but the bumblebee doesn't know it, so it goes on flying anyway.
Caroline is unique in that she will pretty much try anything I put in front of her. She's pretty fearless.
I don't think she fears trying anything. You know, like a lot of people will be like, what are you going to do? Or is this going to hurt? Or, you know, I might fall. And she just was beyond fear, and she would just go for it.
She just always has a very positive attitude. I don't think I've ever seen a day that she comes into therapy and isn't just completely excited and thrilled to be there.
She's just got such an exuberance for life, I think. I think about that word for her particularly. And within that, and her positive spirit, she's just game for anything.
She would get frustrated, but the frustration would motivate her to keep trying more. When we were working on the littlest things, rolling on the mat, trying to get her legs to start moving, things like that, she might get frustrated and angry that she couldn't just tell her body to do what we were asking it to do, but it just made her work harder.
Well, I think Caroline's progress with rehab exemplifies what we aim for at the Patricia Neal Rehab Center, which is restoring abilities and rebuilding lives. But also it's taking you where you are today and making you as independent as possible.
Any therapist could teach Caroline how to raise her leg, how to help her walk, how to go down the steps. But the therapists at Patricia Neal have given her so much more. They've given her hope. They've given her smiles. They've given so much of themselves to help bring our daughter back.
The staff that work with our patients have the most amazing heart for what they do of any rehab staff I had encountered anywhere. And when you talk to our staff, you will find out the vast majority of them do not have a job. They have a calling, and they're fulfilling that calling working at the Patricia Neal Center. And I think that really is noticed by our patients and families.
It is amazing what can be done if you don't worry about who gets credit for it.
When the boys and Whitney decided that we needed to do something to give back to Patricia Neal, they came up with the idea of Caroline Can.
When we were driving back from DC down to Knoxville one time, and we were thinking about what we wanted to do as far as raising money for Patricia Neal and for the foundation.
I remember us wanting to do something, and we didn't know exactly what it was we wanted to do.
I don't think that we really had a clear sense of what Caroline Can would be when we started this process.
Through our campaign, we've had tailgate parties at UT football games. We've had an English Channel swim by the boys. We've had triathlons, just various events that our friends have so generously supported that we've been able to raise money and establish an endowment that'll be there forever.
Well, the Caroline Can Endowment was started by Caroline and her family, and the endowment is being used to provide education for our staff.
I was floored. I was floored that they had so much of an appreciation for what we did, that they would do something like that, that they could expand their focus beyond just Caroline's recovery and kind of give back to us. It was amazing. That generous heart, that's what the Owens have.
Everyone in the family pitches in with different aspects of Caroline Can, and one event one of us carries the burden for, the next event the next one carries the burden for. At every event, Caroline carries a big burden of being the centerpiece and showpiece with us. But it's really about what we can do as a group and not what one individual can do. And I think it really is a back part of what Caroline Can is. It's about what this family and what Caroline can do together, no matter who gets the credit.
Consider tomorrow, but put your energy into today.
I don't look very far forward. We call that, could be a black hole, and we refuse to go there. We really, Caroline and I, live day to day. This is what we're going to do today. This is what we're going to accomplish today. We'll worry about tomorrow.
I think what Caroline really teaches us is to accept who we are, accept what has been called, what Caroline calls the new normal, and make the best out of it.
She's taught me to not ever give up on what you want.
When things are really tough, say they're tough, say it stinks, say it's rough, and then do something.
Every once in a while I try and think how I would have reacted if I was in Caroline's situation, and I just don't think I could handle it with anywhere near the grace that she does.
Caroline's helped put life in perspective, and I'm just awfully proud of her.
Without our family, both immediate and extended, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. We wouldn't have been able to accomplish everything with Caroline, time-wise, exercise-wise, and just attitude. Family is the heart and soul of us, our togetherness. And we all have the same goal, to keep Caroline happy, to keep her progressing, to keep her strong, and to keep all of us together. There's nothing that's any more important. T-H-A-N-K. Thank you. Caroline would like to say thank you to all of her friends and therapists at Patricia Neal.